satisfactory reason for the switch. Fox's Kristen Fisher explains.
The Justice Department has been trying to shake up its legal team after the Supreme Court blocked its first attempt to add the controversial question to the census. But attorneys for the ACLU contested the substitutions, and the judge agreed. So this is yet another setback for the Trump administration as it tries to find a way forward to get this question on the 2020 census. Democrats in Congress and on the campaign trail continue to call it racially and politically motivated. But Republican Congressman Jim Jordan argues it's not racist, it's common sense.
Walk up to a person on the street and ask them, do you think on the census we should ask a citizenship question? And their response will be yes.
Fox's Kristen Fisher reporting. Meantime, a federal judge blocks the Trump administration from implementing a new rule that would force pharmaceutical companies to include wholesale prices of their drugs in TV ads. That rule was set to take effect on Tuesday. Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz and Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna introduced legislation to bar federal funds from being used by any military force in Iran without congressional approval. And Gaetz says Congress needs to take back war powers from the executive branch.
I don't believe that a 2001 authorization to use military force is applicable in the year 2019 or beyond. I think we need to update the conditions and terms where we would send America's bravest patriots into battle, and I think we can do that here.
Many Republicans oppose the bill, arguing it ties the president's hands. This is Fox News.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
65 years ago, Bank Pacific opened its doors to our community. As we celebrate, we offer you a special 65th anniversary personal loan rate for as low as 4.65%. For travel, back to school, a wedding, do whatever you want with the money. During July, we just want to give it to you for as low as 4.65% APR. It's our birthday present to you.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal opportunity lender, member FDIC, conditions apply.
Conflicting stories surfaced surrounding the death of an 18-month-old Indiana girl who fell to her death from the 11th floor of a Royal Caribbean cruise ship.
Docked and soon to depart from Puerto Rico when investigators originally said the girl's grandfather was holding her when he lost his balance and she slipped out of his hands and then accidentally dropped to her death. But the family attorney says that is not how it happened and blames Royal Caribbean. According to the attorney, she was in a child water zone play area with her maternal grandfather, which had glass walls all around it, but one partition was open and the girl went through it and overboard. Puerto Rico police are investigating and the family remains on the island.
Fox's Phil Keating. A Tennessee family gets the go-ahead to file a lawsuit against online retailer Amazon over the hoverboard fire that destroyed their home. An appeals court ruling, Amazon became aware of the complaints about hoverboards sold through its marketplace, but only notified customers with an email saying that there had been, quote, reports of safety issues. The family is seeking more than $30 million in damages. The White House says Tuesday's trade talks with China went well, but no solution yet.
There was headway last winter and spring, then it stopped. Hopefully we can pick up where we left off, but I don't know that yet. And our team, Ambassador Lighthizer, Secretary Mnuchin, are exploring all that.
National Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow, President Trump and Chinese President Xi agreed during the G20 summit in Japan not to raise tariffs on products as long as talks progress. Well, trade tensions have roiled the stock markets for months. On Tuesday, U.S. stocks ended mixed as investors look ahead to this week's congressional testimony by Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. The Dow lost 22 points yesterday. The Nasdaq gained 43. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Ready to buy real estate on Guam? Congratulations! But what now? There are so many questions, so many things to do. Where do you start? The best place to start is to call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty, Guam's biggest name in real estate. They aren't the best because they're the biggest. They're the biggest because they're the best. Trust the name. Find out why. Call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty today. 888-2121. Trust the best.
The summer of Jeep, Compass, Cherokee, Wrangler, Cars Plus in Mighty. Your new adventure starts now. Buy the 2019 Motor Trend SUV of the year and get a new Jeep Wrangler Sport for $268 per paycheck. Or get a new Jeep Compass Sport, only $167 per paycheck. Let them hear you coming in the new 2019 Jeep Cherokee. Buy for $205 per paycheck. And get financing as low as 1.99% on all Jeep models. Come see why you'll be kicking it at Cars Plus in Mighty. Driven by you.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I've got a piece here from Tom Knighton, the guy who runs Bearing Arms. Pretty good website if you're into guns, the Second Amendment, who's trying to take it away from us, who's trying to help us, etc. Tom kind of got his back up here, this one. So I will try to read it as though I were Tom Knighton. I'll expect the requisite sound effects coming from inside the control room, operated by the one, the only, the legendary, real Joe Cruz. Yeah, we have an abundance of Joe Cruzes around here, but there's only one real Joe Cruz, right, real Joe Cruz?
That's right, sir.
Yeah, I got that one right, huh? All right, here it goes. I see a lot of headlines day in, day out. I hear and read a lot of comments about gun control as well. Earlier today, I came across this story and included the quote and figure it was time to address it. Lawmakers, including Virginia Governor Ralph Northam, gathered to talk about gun violence and their desire to change the Commonwealth of Virginia's gun laws on the eve of a special session of the General Assembly. Delegate Dolores McQuinn led Sunday's Stop the Gun Violence rally at 31st Street Baptist Church, 31st Street Baptist Church. How many have lost a sister or a brother, McQuinn said. Why are we still fighting these battles when there are some things we can do to help create a paradigm shift? A paradigm shift. Have you ever seen a paradigm shift, real Joe Cruz?
I'm not sure.
Well, back in the days before we had automatic transmissions, you know that lever on the steering column?
Yeah.
That wasn't it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, going on. Why are we still fighting these battles? That's easy. We're still fighting them because you won't shut up and listen. That's what Tom Knighton is telling all the gun control folks. We're still fighting these battles because the only solution your minds can comprehend is gun control. You can't even acknowledge that there are potential solutions out there that don't inhibit Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. You don't want to do anything except restrict gun ownership in various ways, most of which won't stop the violence we're talking about. Further, you don't listen when we tell you that gun control will make the problem worse. No, I'm not saying that you should agree with it. I mean, you should, since it's the truth. But I don't want to force you to accept reality. Disagree? Fine. But don't pretend that we're fine with kids being killed or something of the sort. That pisses me off. For one very good reason, Tom says. The truth is that no one wants kids to be murdered. We're still battling because we're sick and damn tired of being presented as being pro-child murder. We're not about to budge a single inch because you're not willing to listen to us about anything. You're busy vilifying us, pretending we're in favor of things like mass shooting and dead kids. Why should we listen? No one responds well to attempted bullying, as you were bullying. That's all this line of reasoning is. It's nothing more than an attempt to bully us into silence. It's pretending that you're somehow better than us and trying to badger us into complying with your wishes. The thing is, we're not going anywhere. We're a bunch of pain-in-the-butt, in-your-face, freedom-loving jackasses who aren't going to go anywhere to roll over and die. We're here and we're going to keep fighting. We have no real choice. The only alternative from our perspective is to allow people like you to restrict gun ownership further and make the problem even worse. When the good guys are disarmed, who will be around to stop the bad guys from hurting them? Nothing. So that's why we still have this battle. It's why we're going to keep having it too. I'm not going anywhere. So that's Tom Knighton, a rather outspoken advocate of the Second Amendment, and has a pretty interesting website called Bearing Arms. So that's the Second Amendment portion of our program, which we begin every day almost like we're blessing the table. It's almost our own local version of Inefresi. We say this to get into the right frame of mind, to let everybody out there in our international radio listening audience know where we're coming from. We're coming from the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the rule of law, a country that was at least founded on the basis that it's the government's job to secure and protect the individual rights of its citizens. So reading the Second Amendment is a pretty good reminder of those things every day. Don't you think, Real Joe Cruz?
Absolutely, sir. And if you started the show without doing that, I might have to draw down on you, sir.
Wow. Yeah, it just shows you how seriously we take this whole Second Amendment thing, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm the last one. Okay, let's go straight from the good, the bad, and the ugly into Zemi Ikotny. And I did bring my blue pen with me today. I'm ready to search through these editorials with an eagle eye, looking for grammatical mistakes in English usage, factual statements that just don't live up to being facts, theories that don't make sense, etc. And you know what I do when I've gone through the whole analysis? I award the coveted blue star to the better of the two editorials, if one is better than the other. The blue star never goes by default. There has to be merit in order to recover the blue star. I just saw Tom on the line. What happened to him?
I don't know. They must have probably thought you were busy, maybe?
Well, I'm always busy. I'm always busy jabbering here into this microphone. But,
That's true, sir.
Yeah, quite often.
Call back.
Yeah, quite often, if I'm working on something, I like to finish it, and then I'll take the call right before the next item on the program. Trying to adhere to, trying to keep things on a pretty even keel, and trying to pick up a subject and then stay with it. But this program is structured, but it's not so structured that we won't entertain callers on just about anything when they call in. So I noticed that I hardly got the Second Amendment out of my mouth, and the Real Joe Cruz opened the Tom line, and now he's hung up on it. Try again, Tom. Okay, and then I've got Marcus on line 2. Good afternoon, Marcus.
Hey, up a day, Senor Klitzkie.
Yeah.
Hey, sir, actually am calling on behalf of a veteran, a World War II veteran that lives here in Guam. He's 92 years old, 93 years old, fought in World War II on the USS Delaware, DD 4329 or something. Helped build the road from Agate to Mauricio back in the day. And John Terrell from Talapago, married to an Espinosa. And he kind of needs some good advice on some legal matters. And I was wondering if you knew a good veteran legal attorney or something that's available to help him with maybe a little bit with Veterans Affairs and some possible bank fraud.
Yeah, if you go to the Guam Bar Association website, guambar.com,
yes,
you'll find a lawyer referral service there. And lawyers will kind of list their interests and specialties, and a lot of times they'll say something like, no charge for the first conference or something like that.
Correct. Okay.
So that might be a good place to start. I know there are a couple of lawyers that are veterans and perhaps have a little bit more understanding about that than the average bear. But that'd be a good place to start, Marcus.
Good. Because, I mean, he has a little bit of dementia, maybe, but, well, actually, I don't know. But could use the family and him use some help in that regard. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just Mossy.
Buen provecho. Okay, Marcus, thanks for calling.
Yes, sir.
All right, open that Tom line back up again, will you, Real Joe Cruz?
You got it, sir.
Yeah. Tom, where are you? Tom, the ever-elusive Tom. I don't know, maybe he's calling somebody else's show or something like that. No, Tom wouldn't do that.
No, I don't think so, sir.
All right. Let me get my Facebook squared away here.
You spend a lot of time on Facebook, huh, sir?
Yeah, I do. When I'm on the air. That's about it. Yeah, okay. I'm not part of the Facebook generation, Real Joe Cruz, believe it or not. I see the phone ringing.
You forgot it. You forgot your phone.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have a cell phone, but, you know, it's not easy to find parts for a steam-powered cell phone anymore. Let's see. Here's Tom. Okay. Hey, Tom, how you doing?
All right, Bob. I'm sorry about the previous call. My landline is having a major malfunction.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I'm now on the air.
Yes, you are.
My voice is being transmitted through the air.
Through the entire world, out there to our entire worldwide international listening audience, Tom.
That's right. Anyway, when you were talking about gun control, you reminded me of an incident here in Guam a couple of years ago, so many years ago. If those people at Seventh-day Adventists had guns, as soon as that moron Manguado stepped in, blasting away with his pistol, somebody would have stopped him and dropped him before he killed his wife and he shot so many employees in there.
It's very possible, Tom.
Say again?
It's very possible, yeah.
Yeah, so, and also the shooting incident in the church in the mainland, if only those church goers had weapons, they probably would have just dropped that shooter. But it's crazy. It seems like we all got to arm ourselves now and stand ready to defend ourselves 24 hours a day. Because you never know. Somebody might just go crazy immediately and just start rapping away.
Can happen.
Yeah, so I am totally against gun control. Well, there is already so many laws on gun control. Why don't they just enforce that now? You know?
Yeah, well, the people that are complying with the gun control rules are not the problem. It's the people that aren't complying with the rules that are the problem. You know, you read so many stories about how many people get killed in Chicago with guns. It's several hundred every year. And the problem isn't that Chicago doesn't have gun control in place. It just nobody pays any attention to it. You know, so if somebody has stolen a car, he's probably not going to pay too much attention to no parking signs, right? It's that same kind of thing. People who break laws with guns are not going to say, well, I'm going to go down and rob the 7-Eleven, but I've got to make sure that my gun is registered, my gun permit is up to date before I head down there, because I wouldn't want to get busted for having an unregistered firearm in the middle of my robbery. And that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. All right, Bob. Thanks for listening.
Well, thanks for your persistence, Tom, fighting that dying telephone line, and you finally made it, so thanks again. Okay, so we're starting out here. We got our Tom line open, and we had the obligatory call from Marcus that oftentimes begins the program. So I go from there. I've already explained what I do here in Zemi-Ikotni. And today, for once, we have an editorial from the Daily News that was actually written right here on Guam. Yeah. That doesn't happen very often. It's not a very good editorial, but at least it was done here. Okay, here's how it goes. If you lack and can't afford the training you need to find a good-paying job in a field where you can look forward to a career that can sustain you, you're not alone. All you would-be talk show hosts out there. The island's public schools do a poor job at getting Guam youths adequately prepared to enter the workforce. Not everyone has the inclination toward college. A lot of folks don't want to go to college because they don't want to live in the dorm, right, Real Joe Cruz?
It's a tough life being a dormer.
Yeah, you've been a dormer, right?
You got that right, sir.
Yeah. I could see your magnum opus, your great American novel, Confessions of a Teenage Dormer.
True, sir.
Yeah. If you're eager to work and want a chance to learn valuable skills towards a good job, there is hope. The Guam Department of Labor recently received a federal grant of $462,170 that's meant to help strengthen the local workforce through registered apprenticeship programs. However, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero announced yesterday that she will send the $462,170 back to Washington because she wants to sit down at the table with the United States at the United Nations. She wants Guam to be independent. That's not what the column says, Real Joe. I just ad-libbed that in there.
You're always getting me.
Yeah. The U.S. Department of Labor's Employment Training Administration awarded the State Apprenticeship Expansion Grant, which will help unemployed adults, youths, and displaced or dislocated workers develop the skill sets employers are looking for. The governor is committed to fostering the continued expansion of registered apprenticeship opportunities, and this new grant continues the evolution of apprenticeship on Guam, said David Del Isla, Guam Department of Labor Director. He's not the Guam Department of Labor Director. He is the Director of Labor. Wow. How many times do we have to go through this? That's almost as bad as it's a personnel matter. You know, you keep saying the same mistake over and over again, and since everybody else repeats the same mistake, well, you must be right. According to the local labor agency, Guam has 118 apprenticeship sponsors, 55 active programs, and 107 programs approved. The grant money will be used to expand the number of participants in apprenticeship opportunities. according to the Guam Department of Labor. It's a fellow I never met. I think they are located somewhere down in the GCIC building. So one person, but it's still they. Let's see. The Guam Department of Labor wants to expand into transportation, the public sector, hospitality and tourism, agriculture, and education. We want to partner with the Guam Department of Education, Guam Community College, University of Guam, the GCA Trades Academy, and the Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association, and use registered apprenticeships as an effective tool to make sure we continue to help job seekers get hired and to help businesses skill up their employees. Now, there's a word I never heard before, skill up. Yeah. So I'm going to help you skill up, Real Joe Cruz, so that when Snerdley retires, Rush Limbaugh will be out here saying, hey, where's the Real Joe Cruz?
Yeah, I'll be ready.
Yeah. I really like Snerdley, but Snerdley's gone now, so where's the Real Joe Cruz?
Yep, I've been skilled up.
Yeah. Okay, so the editorial winds up by saying, we hope to see this program advance so more can find gainful employment. Well, the idea of apprenticeship is an interesting idea. I know a little bit about it. I've never been an apprentice, but I worked for a plumber once upon a time when I was a youngster. And I was not an apprentice plumber, but the guy I worked for started out as an apprentice plumber. In order to be an apprentice, you have to work for somebody in the trade, a master in the trade. You got some papers to fill out, and there's some special wage provisions that apply to masters. And after so much time as an apprentice, depending on the trade, you can take a test and you can become a journeyman. So you start out as an apprentice plumber, then you work your way up to journeyman plumber, and then after so much time experience there and some more education, and you can sit for the master plumber's exam. And that's where the big money is in plumbing, is being a master plumber. Now, I don't know if the trades that we were talking about here are articulated in that manner, but if that's the case, it could work out to be a good idea. And I have to say, anything in which the Guam Trades Academy is involved is probably something that's going to work. It's not a government agency. It's supported by the Contractors Association, and they do a pretty good job of turning out people to work in the construction trades. Okay, so that's the daily news. Well, I can't say that it caused me to grit my teeth midway through it, as editorials sometimes do. But at least it was a homegrown editorial, and for the Daily News, that's quite an accomplishment. Okay, then we turn to the Post. The Post hit the nail right on the head today. Guam Guard's words contradict its handling of defendant in child sex assault case. Now, you'll remember this from yesterday's card. How bad can you be, Guam National Guard? Here it goes. We question whether this is a fair application of the Guard policy on soldiers and airmen under a cloud of suspicion and facing criminal charges. Does the Guard have lower ethical standards than top military brass in the Pentagon? It's not easy to find out what issues are going on in the compound of the Guam National Guard and how the leadership handles problems involving sexual assault inside or outside the organization until the issue spills over into the public available records. On Monday, one such public record became very public. The FBI announced the arrest of Guam Army National Guard soldier Sergeant Jerry Thomas Guerrero II that day while he was at work in Guam Guard's main compound. Now, I can visualize what happened. A couple of FBI guys coming in there looking like Briscoe, and what's the other guy's name? I can't remember. Anyhow, Briscoe and his partner, and Jerry Thomas, can you step over here? Well, yeah, I'm pretty busy. I'm going to have a meeting with the colonel in a little while. Well, the colonel is going to have to wait. Stick out your arms. You have a right to remain, et cetera, et cetera. So they arrested him at the Guard. How embarrassing. Okay, I'm going to come back to this after a short break.
Weekday shopping just got exciting. Join the Agania Shopping Center's Shop and Win on Weekdays promo. Shop or dine at any ASC store or restaurant on weekdays from now till October 31st. Show your receipt at the ASC booth and win instantly. Every $20 spent gets you an entry form to win big at the monthly draws, including round-trip tickets to Manila, $500 ASC gift certificates, and more. See posters and print ads for more. Special thanks to Sky Zone, Fun and Mall Riders, Vince Jewelers, and Wendy's.
Get a Coke 12-pack for only $3.49 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a dozen extra-large eggs for only 49 cents when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a case of Circle K water for only $2.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, so a couple FBI agents waltzed into the National Guard headquarters up in Barragata, slapped the cuffs on Jerry Thomas, and took him out of there under arrest. Now, this would be good for the morale of the other soldiers, I'm sure. It was a shock that someone who had worn the uniform for nearly 10 years could be arrested by authorities on federal charges involving alleged child pornography. The other matter that came as a surprise was that the defendant was still allowed to continue working in the Army National Guard. This was Guerrero's second arrest in a sex assault case involving a minor. In June 2018, local authorities arrested him. In Superior Court records, he was accused of having had sex with a 14-year-old girl, allegedly having recorded the acts on video and subsequently posting the images on a social media platform. He was granted temporary release from jail in a local case while it awaits resolution. In other words, he was allowed out on bail pending trial. But while that's within his rights, it's tough to grasp why the Guam Guard allow him to return to work. The Guam Guard has reasoned that the defendant has not yet been found guilty. We question whether this is a fair application of the Guard policy on soldiers and airmen under a cloud of suspicion and facing criminal charges. We've seen a few other Guam soldiers and airmen being placed on leave and stripped of their paychecks while waiting for the outcome of their cases that might be viewed by some as less egregious, including allegations involving recruitment or housing fraud, and there have been enough of those. It's also ironic that the same week that the Guam Guard was publicly found to have kept the accused sergeant on the job, a member of the Navy's top brass in the Pentagon, Vice Admiral William Moran, had to step down while in the line for the job of Chief of Naval Operations after he was called out for an alleged improper relationship with another Navy officer. Does the Guam Guard have lower ethical standards than the top military brass in the Pentagon? You better Hong Kong believe it. This Thomas case is a classic example. After Guerrero's arrest Monday, Major General Esther Aggie, the Adjutant General of the Guard, said, "There is no tolerance for Let me get into the right frame. Let me pronounce this to make a pronouncement here. Can you give me a little dramatic music here? Dramatic. Okay,
Yeah,
well.
I don't have much dramatic music right now.
Yeah, well, you're going to need it. Here it goes. There is no tolerance for deprived conduct such as sexual exploitation of minors in the Guam National Guard, he said. So why was Guerrero found at work in the Guard compound when the FBI arrested him? He was charged more than a year earlier in the Superior Court with second-degree criminal sexual conduct, child pornography, jurisdiction over an adult, sexting, illegal use of a computer or telecommunications device to disseminate prohibited materials involving a minor, and gravity. Even broke the law of gravity. Last time the Daily Post reported on this case, he was still set to go to trial in October. FBI Honolulu acting special agent in charge, Rafael Riviere, said Guerrero's arrest Monday sends a powerful message to predators across the board. And the last paragraph, the Guam Guard, it seems, doesn't want to send that same message. Maybe its leadership doesn't think the public would find out a defendant in a child sex assault case was still working in its compound. Now, the thing that I really liked about this item on the card yesterday was something that I plucked from the Daily News. And this is something got to pay more attention to. So many of these agencies have professional spokespeople and oftentimes counsel, and they say the dumbest things. Well, for instance, Richard Ibanez, the acting director of Parks and Recreation, when the question was raised, well, what authority what authority do you have to be director of Parks and Recreation? Well, we're not going to speak on that because it's a personnel matter. BS! You know, people have gotten so used to saying this, it's a personnel matter, that they think it actually means something. So, you know, for the average Tom, Dick, or Harry, maybe so. But if you're going to be the spokesman for an agency, you kind of ought to know what you're talking about when you open your mouth. Otherwise, agencies don't need spokespeople. You could just go out and pick somebody by lot and say, go out there and lie to the press. And this is a classic example here. This is Major Josephine Bloss. And this is what Major Josephine Bloss said. Although Guerrero was charged in local court, there was no judgment in the case, and as of Monday, was still employed with the National Guard, said Major Josephine Bloss, Public Affairs Officer for the Guard. A person is innocent until proved guilty, and the local case had not been resolved, so Guerrero remained employed with the Guard, Bloss said. We gave him an extra hour's time off in the morning so he could get to his phone and do his sexting. I just ad-libbed that. But, I mean, how bad can it be, you know, for somebody in a position, a major in a position of authority? Well, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. And although we knew about these charges, is basically what she's saying, because Guerrero had been indicted. You can't pull the Joey Duenas defense. Oh, nobody told me. They let him stay on the job anyhow, even though there were these serious charges against him. And this morning on the Ray Gibson show, I was made a special appearance this morning because I forgot my phone down here last night. I got some pretty good ribbing about my phone, you know. I got the when I finally done with my phone, I think the Guam Museum would like to have it, put it in their historical artifacts section. But we talked about the Tory case and the standard of proof in a criminal case. In order to convict someone in a criminal case, the proof, you must convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that the crime was committed and that this defendant committed the crime without excuse or defense, beyond a reasonable doubt. In a civil case, in order to recover, it's only necessary that the case be proven by a preponderance of the evidence. So if you're going to do it numerically, beyond a reasonable doubt is up there in the high 90s, 97, 98%. Preponderance of the evidence is just 51 to 49. So if there was enough evidence here to indict Mr. Thomas, there certainly was enough evidence there to terminate his employment. And because they didn't terminate his employment, then hard questions come up. Were they trying to cover it up? Is he a special character? Was there favoritism involved? Anybody take on and on and on. It's just stupid. And then to try to justify it by saying, well, he was innocent until proven guilty. So National Guard is one of my favorite organizations here on the island. I spent 10 years there myself. And I like to say nice things about the National Guard when I can, but that's not possible today in the face of this Jerry Thomas case and the way it was completely bungled. And then for Major Agagi to come up and say, what did she said? She had some self-serving statement here. Yeah, Major Aggie, there is no tolerance for depraved conduct such as sexual exploitation of minors in the National Guard for a period longer than 1 year. We'll give you 1 year and it's okay. But after that, by gosh, we're really going to put our foot down. Very disappointing. Adjutant General Esther Aggie, very disappointing. And if I'm disappointed, how must the soldiers in the Guard feel, you know, as they see their organization put in this incredibly awkward position because of a failure of leadership and a failure to understand what it is you're doing. Okay, we got a time for a Jimmy break here. Okay, so I'm gonna push the button here and put the two Jimmys on the line. Afternoon, Jimmy. Afternoon, Jimmy.
There's only one today.
Only one Jimmy. Whoa, I feel like I'm not getting my money's worth.
So, you know, I got a split personality, and sometimes it's just one, and other times another thing.
Okay.
But anyway, you know what they call a nuclear family in Guam?
A nuclear family in Guam. I give up, Jimmy.
Well, that's when the stepfather raped the 14-year-old daughter, and then things explode.
Well, Jimmy, I think we're going to have to thank you very much for calling and kind of disavow that joke for today. But if you got one that's a little bit gentler, give us a buzz tomorrow, okay, Jimmy?
Yeah, maybe so.
All right. That's our Jimmy. So where was I here? We finished up... oh, yeah, I guess I better award the Blue Star. No big surprise this time, is there, Real Joe Cruz? You know, the Daily News was right on, the Post was right on top of it, laid it right out very clearly and spoke up about something. It clearly deserves comment. And I hope that the Daily News, that the Post continues to follow up on this. I would like to see someone interview the Adjutant General and say, what is this, innocent until proven guilty? You know, and somebody who's been indicted for serious charges like this, and you let him stay on for a whole year? Okay, so that's that covers the Jimmy Cotney. And then we go from there to the card. And And I've got some interesting items on the card. I'm going to spend a little time with People versus Tory because it was so important and it drew so much interest yesterday that I want to make sure that if anyone wants to comment or call or whatever, they have the opportunity on People versus Tory. But I think before I jump into People versus Tory, I saw some kind of interesting things on Facebook out of the corner of my eye. So let me just kind of take a cruise through there and see if there's anything that's on point. Let's see, I got Rico Blancafor, Dave Duenas, A. Camacho. A. Camacho says, is citizenship racism? I don't quite understand the question. I might try to read something into it. But in Japan, if you're not Japanese, you're not going to be a citizen of Japan. But if you are Japanese, you'll be a citizen of Japan no matter where you go, with a couple of little bitty exceptions. In other words, their citizenship in Japan is really based on race, based on being a Japanese. The United States is not that way at all. You know, there's no racial characteristic or qualification for being an American. And I've heard it said, although it's hard to say it anymore, but the big difference between the real competitive edge that the United States had over China was that the United States was able to make Chinese into Americans, but China has never been able to make Americans into Chinese. In other words, the old idea of the American melting pot, where people came from all over the world to the United States, not because they were the same race or the same religion or spoke the same language, but they were all bought into the same ideals. Anyhow, if you want to pursue that a little further, kind of refine your question, and I'll pick it up and take it a little bit farther, eh? Tom Tahaji's here, Rico Blancaflor, Dave Duenas, Hafide, Dave. And of course, Tom Tahaji has to extend a greeting to the real Joe Cruz. Huh. And then I've got James M. Schmidt. James M. Schmidt, you're a lawman. How can laws be more effective? More training? Better judges? Sneaking drugs into DOC, how can that be a misdemeanor? And James is talking about this decision that was reported where the last of the defendants almost the last of the defendants in the drug case involving corrections officers and inmates at the Department of Corrections, the corrections officer was allowed to plead to a misdemeanor. The misdemeanor being official misconduct. There were people who were given some heavy-duty charges, and I guess James is saying, you know, how could it be that these guys smuggled drugs into the penitentiary, sold them or gave them or sold them to whatever, the inmates, etc., and now they're walking away with a misdemeanor, public corruption? And the best answer I can give you, James, is I don't know. I could speculate a little bit. And that is that perhaps when the prosecutors looked at their cases and evaluated some of the testimony that they thought they were going to get and aren't going to get it, they thought maybe we can't make these cases after all. Maybe it's better to plead them out than it is to take them to trial and lose them. I don't know, but that's somehow, these are all elements in the criminal justice system and the prosecution angle. Something like 90+% of cases charged, crimes charged, are pled out as opposed to going to trial. And then let's see, I've got James Schmidt. 99% of the time, I agree with you. Very level-headed and informed. Well, thank you very much. Something about that James M. Schmidt I kind of like. Good judge of character, for one thing, right? Yeah. And then Richard V. Leone says, where's Richard V. Leone here? No mercy to inept Gov Guam and Little Lou LG. Okay, no mercy. And then we've got Dwayne Paredo's on board. A. Camacho said, can the AG try Tory on a type of manslaughter charge since it's different from negligent homicide? Well, negligent homicide and manslaughter are pretty close, but I think that probably when he was acquitted of the charges at the conclusion of his first trial, manslaughter was taken off the table. Because as I recall, he was charged with at least second-degree murder plus lesser included offenses. And the only thing the jury came back and found him guilty on was negligent homicide. So those other charges would not be chargeable again because of the Constitution's language. Where is that Constitution? Yeah. Let's take a short break here while I'm paging through my Constitution.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office, and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
Yeah, so coming back here to answer that question, the Fifth Amendment contains this language. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. So you can't try a person twice for the same offense. Now, since Tory was convicted of negligent homicide and that case was reversed on appeal, it doesn't count for double jeopardy. He can be tried again, but as I explained yesterday, it's going to be a tough one to decide whether or not to try him again because looking through the Supreme Court decision, etc., it appears that the evidence that was suppressed may be crucial to the prosecution gaining a judgment of conviction on Mark Tory. So they may decide not to try him again, or maybe they'll enter into a plea agreement. It's hard to say. Okay, going on here. To Jose Martinez. Jose Martinez, are you saying that only 1% of the time Senator Bob does not know Schmidt? I don't know about that one. I kind of got a feeling I know Schmidt.
You know a lot of Schmidt, sir.
Yeah, I do. I even know one that's not really very bright. You know how I refer to him?
Dumb Schmidt?
A dumb Schmidt, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But most of the Schmidts I know are pretty smart. Okay, going on here to Dwayne Paredo. Tory needs to man up, carry his cross, and stop playing the victim. Yeah, I know what you're saying there. I've read some of his statements, that it's kind of like an appeal for the sympathy of the public when I think in the eyes of most of the public, he's not a very sympathetic figure. However, playing the victim could be contagious because it seemed to be the most popular sport around here, victims and villains. And we got Pierre Taurine on board this afternoon, and Shelley Gibson, and A. Camacho again. No morals, wishful thinking, and totally sad. And Dwayne Pareda. Torrey has been a free man for 4 years house arrest. Doesn't mean anything while the Piolo family still grieves for justice. Yeah, it's very true. It's a sad thing when someone is killed by another person. Now, of course, the defense's theory is that the defense advanced the theory that Torrey didn't shoot Piolo, that Piolo wanted to shoot himself, and Torrey was trying to get the gun away from him. So, and we got Dwayne Pareto again. Torrey has been a free man, as you were. I just read that one. And then here's Dwayne Pareto again. What doesn't make sense is our justice system here. All these evidence and still not enough. Well, let me make an explanation here. It wasn't a matter of evidence that caused the Supreme Court to to vacate the conviction against Torrey. The Supreme Court didn't look at it and say that the trial court erred because there wasn't sufficient evidence for the case to go to. No reasonable jury could have found Torrey guilty on this case. Those motions are made routinely, judgments for acquittal. That wasn't the case. It wasn't a matter of how much evidence, but what evidence had to be excluded. And that's where the constitutional part of it comes in. If a confession is not voluntary, it can't be used against the person who does the confessing. It would be suppressed. And the same thing goes with search and seizure. If evidence is found in an improper search, it can't be used in a trial. So this can lead to some really egregious results where, let me just give an example. Let's say that Mr. X has got 10 pounds of crystal methamphetamine in his backpack, and he's walking down the street, and a cop sees him walking down the street with his backpack and walks up to Mr. X and says, "I want to see what's inside your backpack. Drop to your knees." And X says, "Why would I drop to your knees?" And the cop takes out his pocket knife and cuts open that backpack and exposes the 10 pounds of methamphetamine. That methamphetamine could not be used against X in a trial because it was an improper search, and evidence obtained in an improper search can't be used against the defense in a trial. A confession that's not voluntary, getting into the technicalities of the Miranda warning and custody, cannot be used. So it wasn't that there wasn't enough evidence to convict Torrey. The problem in the Torrey case was that some of that evidence was obtained improperly, according to the Supreme Court. And these are real nail biters for the people that care about the folks involved in the case, the victim's family. There's no question. The victim's family say, no question he did it, but they're letting him off on a technicality. Something you hear all the time. Okay, let's, did we take the 10-minute break? Okay.
We're about to.
Okay, so we're taking the 10-minute break now?
I think this is a halftime right here.
This is the halftime break.
Yeah,
so we're going to have that big halftime show?
It's coming up, sir.
All right, I'm sitting on the edge of my chair in the bleachers here for the big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A judge won't let DOJ attorneys quit. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. A federal judge blocks the Trump administration from making changes to the legal team handling a census citizenship question.
That judge in his decision referred to issues with a tight schedule in order to get a quick resolution. The judge also called the defendants' thought that a change in counsel would mean minimal disruption to the case as not being good enough. President Trump has insisted the question be asked on the census even after the Supreme Court ruled that the Commerce Department's reason for doing so was insufficient. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Most Democrats strongly oppose the citizenship question.
This is about keeping, make America, this hat, make America white again.
Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Deputies in Nevada say a man found dead July 4th may be the victim of the earthquake that rocked Southern California. If so, it would be the first death linked to the magnitude 6.4 quake near Ridgecrest that was felt from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. The Nye County Sheriff's Department says that deputies found a 56-year-old man pinned under a Jeep in Pahrump, Nevada, about 150 miles from the quake's epicenter. The House plans to vote Friday on the 9/11 First Responders Aid Bill. That's according to Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. The bill's become a major issue after emotional testimony on Capitol Hill in recent weeks, including that of retired New York police detective Luis Alvarez, who died just days later. In baseball,
two-run game again, and here is Gallo, and there it goes. Home run, Joey Gallo.
That call courtesy of Fox, the American League holding off the National League for a 4-3 victory in the 90th All-Star game last night. This is Fox News.
65 years ago, Bank Pacific opened its doors to our community. As we celebrate, we offer you a special 65th anniversary personal loan rate for as low as 4.65%. For travel, back to school, a wedding, do whatever you want with the money. During July, we just want to give it to you for as low as 4.65% APR. It's our birthday present to you.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal opportunity lender, member FDIC, conditions apply.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Democratic candidate Eric Swalwell drops out of the race, but another candidate drops in.
Tom Steyer said earlier this year he would not run for president, pledging millions of dollars instead to re-elect Democrats in the House of Representatives. Well, times have changed, and he's running on one theme: impeachment. Steyer started airing commercials hoping to impeach Trump back in 2017. He used the I word well before others in his party. A former hedge fund manager founded Next Gen America, a political action committee focused on climate change. His focus moved to impeachment months after Trump moved into the White House. Steyer joins a growing number in the U.S. House who also want to impeach the president.
Fox's David Spunt. The United Nations says hunger is growing and the world is not on track to end extreme poverty by 2030. UN report says that's mostly due to climate change and increasing inequality. The report issued Tuesday notes some progress, though, including a 49% drop in child mortality rates between 2000 and 2017, and an expansion of electricity to nearly 90% of the world's population. Music mogul Jay-Z looks to leave his mark in the cannabis industry.
Jay-Z is adding a new title to his long resume as a chief brand strategist in partnership with the California cannabis product company Caliva, a company that NFL great Joe Montana's venture capital firm dropped a $75 million investment into. The music mogul saying he's interested in increasing the economic participation of people returning to the workforce after being incarcerated by offering job training. His role will consist of driving creative direction direction, outreach efforts, and strategy for the brand. Klitzkie operates a farm and roughly 24 retail stores. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
And I'm Carmen Roberts. This is Fox News.
GPSI Guam is a professional services company that is a registered contractor for the federal government. They're an SBA, 8A, and Hub Zone certified SDVOSB, providing program/project management, administration, technical support, logistics, and commodities. Find out more about GPSI and how they can help you today. For large prime companies, contact GPSI if you need assistance in meeting your small business subcontracting goals at 477-3058. They'll be happy to assist.
Ready to buy real estate on Guam? Congratulations! But what now? There are so many questions, so many things to do. Where do you start? The best place to start is to call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty, Guam's biggest name in real estate. They aren't the best because they're the biggest. They're the biggest because they're the best. Trust the name. Find out why. Call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty today. 888-2121. Trust the best.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Another great halftime show. We love it every day, don't we, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
We can't get enough of it.
Breathless.
Yeah, it's really a great show. Now we're entering the second half of Tall Tales. We've got not quite an hour to go here. Time to do a lot of really interesting things, handle a lot of red-hot issues. I'm going to go to something I saw on Facebook here that from a comment from Pierre. Pierre says, Aggie was not the leader of the National Guard when this occurred in 2018. She was just sworn in late spring. Her predecessor should have handled that one. True enough. So he is entitled to as much scorn as I could heap on him. But that doesn't let Aggie off the hook for when she came on board. If it hadn't been done by the time she came on board, she should have fired him. And then also, there are two aggravations here. One, the way they let this apparent sex criminal hang around the National Guard for a whole year after he'd been charged. And then the second, the stupid response from Major Bloss, the so-called spokesman. He said, well, he's innocent until proven guilty. I don't know if Bloss said that because she was repeating what Aggie had said, or if she just made it up, or if that's what they teach people at public relations school or whatever. But Aggie should have come out and corrected that. And then, of course, we all know who the commander-in-chief of the Guam National Guard is, don't we? It's the governor. So if the governor is really serious about providing some leadership, she needs to come out and take hold of this, because no one should walk away from this, unscathed. This is a tremendous black eye for the National Guard for what they did, for what they didn't do it, and then for how the way it was handled. Once they were caught, Aggie comes out with these really high-flown statements at the same time that her spokesman is saying something is incredibly stupid. So these people carry weapons. They carry firearms. They may have to go into combat. It's happened before. So I'm looking for some really good judgment here, and the absolute necessity in any military organization is discipline. And what kind of discipline do you have when you tolerate having this guy Thomas around for a year after you knew what he had done? Whether it was the adjutant general at the time that the charges were filed or Aggie, who was a successor, etc. Hard to look past those. Okay, let's see. I've got Ken LG on the line. I was just about to get to your comment, Ken. Let me get to your comment, and then I'll put you on the line. Ken LG says, I can find it here. I probably can't find it. Okay, Ken, I'm going to put you on the line, but the first thing I want you to do is read that comment that you posted on Facebook and that I can't find right now. Okay, Ken?
Yes. My comment was that so far the celebrations of potential for female and the legislature and the Guard haven't lived up to the hype.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm glad you came and pointed that out. And of course, that is the height of political incorrectness, because we were conditioned from the day after the votes were counted that we were supposed to sit around and say, ooh, ah. And every time the legislature was mentioned or the governor was mentioned, because there were 10 females in the legislature, ooh. And we had our first elected female governor, and almost as though that were the end in itself, not that we elect people to do something. We only elect them to be something. In this case, we elected them just to be women, and after that, nothing else counts. So, good comment, Ken.
Well, along the lines of the conversation that you were having, I wanted to point out how whenever anybody in government in Guam is arrested, they're put on administrative leave. In other words, the taxpayers are paying for these people to stay at home until their cases go through the system. They're not required to use their personal leaves or their annual leaves or anything. The taxpayers pay for it. And when you look at the DOC officers that have joined the catch and release program, some of those people were on administrative leave for months before they were charged.
Theoretically, you're only supposed to be on administrative leave for 20 days during the pendency of an investigation. So if they were on administrative leave longer than that, it's not the system, it's someone who didn't follow the system.
Well, that was the feedback I got when I can't remember who I asked about, and the response was, we have to keep them on administrative leave until they're either indicted or they could sue us.
Oh, that's a dumb response. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a dumb response at the time.
Yeah.
But, this first 6 months of the administration of 35th have been so bad that so many people's hopes were dashed. And that's why starting on the 25th in Santa Rita, we're starting 10 days of voter village meetings for the voter initiative process. We're going to do the education phase, where we're going to introduce to voters, citizens, the concept of initiative. And we're putting certain things out there that we're going to be trying to get onto the 2020 ballot. Election reform, judicial strengthening, if you will, and giving citizens the ability to file actions against government and Guam employees who abuse or misuse their positions in power. And so these meetings that we're going to be doing between the 25th and the 3rd, and the schedule is posted on our Facebook page, and we'll be putting ads out, and we'll be raising this issue often, is to encourage as many people as possible to come out and learn about the process and to hear what's going on.
Okay, good. Good. I think the real Joe Cruz has a pithy aphorism that he would trot forth when it comes time to talk about active citizenship. Correct, real Joe Cruz? How does that go?
Oh, that.
Yeah.
The one you always refer to when Ken calls.
Yeah. Let me get you started here. You know, a constitution may set forth rights and liberties, but only citizens can maintain and guarantee those freedoms.
Active and informed citizenship is not just a right, it's a duty.
Yeah, and Ken really complies with that duty, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, very good, Ken.
Well, that's the reason why we're going to take this initiative process through, because until we as citizens start doing a better job managing the people we hire through the election process, this situation is going to continue to deteriorate. But once we go in and through the initiative process change the rules of the game, then our elected and appointed officials will probably take more careful notice of what the people are upset about. Because when you look at all the problems facing us in our community right now, where do they put their priorities? In the 6 months that they've been in power, the ADLU and in the legislation, not a single issue that has been important to the people has been addressed. But they've passed a lot of, they've handled a lot of issues that are important for political insiders, like the casino bill and, the Guam Regional Welfare Fund, substantially increasing the medical contract for the benefit of medical insurance companies to be paid for by taxpayers, most of whom who don't have medical insurance. So there's a lot of things coming out of this legislature that really do not benefit the people. In the meantime, our cost of living goes up, cost of government goes up, our buying power goes down. We don't feel safe in our villages, our homes now. And, these are very serious issues. And our healthcare system's collapsing, but we don't see them addressing these issues.
But let's give credit where credit is due, Ken. We've got gambling at the carnival.
We've got gambling at the carnival. Our lieutenant governor has met with the UN and marched in the gay parade. That doesn't improve our quality of life here on Guam one iota. There's a proposal in the budget to give the Mayor's Council of Guam $1 million to plant flowers in the villages to make our villages more beautiful. Where's that $1 million going to come from? The fuel tax. So instead of spending $1 million out of the fuel tax, say, fixing holes in the villages, roads, they're going to dig holes alongside the roads to plant flowers.
At best.
See, there's a big disconnect between the ADLU, the legislature, and the people, and that's why we're having these meetings, so that we can address it ourselves.
Well, if you wanted to plagiarize the line that I keep jabbering about all the time, Ken, you have my permission. It wouldn't even be plagiarizing. I say that what I want to see is an effective, efficient government operating within the rules of law that provides basic government services on at least a break-even basis. That's all I want.
Yeah.
None of the frills, none of the nice-to-haves.
Now I'm just waiting to see which political insiders are going to go to the FESPAC in Hawaii at taxpayer expense.
We're only going to send 100 people, and given the breadth and depth of our culture, Ken, how can we possibly do it with only 100 people?
So what they'll be doing is they'll be practicing their political sign erections to demonstrate before the FESPAC community.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of room for improvement in this government, and that's what we have to do. We have to do it ourselves because our government officials have proven themselves time and time again incapable of, taking care of the people, as we're seeing right now with almost daily stories on the front pages about, criminals being released, the Attorney General's office refusing to prosecute criminals, but he will prosecute businesses who have legally brought in CBD oil, but they will release meth dealers.
Pretty disappointing, isn't it, Ken?
Yeah, it's very disappointing, very frustrating. And so, this is the wave of discontent that we are riding into the end of this month and the beginning of next month. And I'm looking forward to engaging with people, and as we craft our directions to our leaders through the initiative process, it should be an interesting time. The meetings will definitely be very interesting, because in the meetings we're going to analyze what's going on in government of Guam. I'm going to give my own version of a State of the Island address, which will be looking at the different government programs and policies and how they affect us, and how through the voter initiative we can take control of those things and make it better for the people.
Very good, Ken. Well, make sure you keep us informed, okay?
I definitely will.
Thanks a lot for calling. So that was Ken, and I found his post just right after he read it. I like it so well, I'm going to read it again. So far, the actions of Adelup, the legislature, and the Guard are not living up to the hype of the post-election celebration of female leadership. Now, I suppose that's just a horrible thing for me to say, right? When we all knew what a wonderful thing it was. Oh, we've got 10 women in the legislature. We're going to have the best legislature. How can we miss with 10 females in the legislature? Oh, we've got a first female governor of Guam. How wonderful. Our adjutant general is a female. We're going to go great guns. Not that not that it's a bad thing to have females in positions of leadership, but it's a bad thing to put people in positions of leadership because they're female. And I kind of got that feeling with the Leon Guerrero administration when they gave the heave-ho to Rod Leon Guerrero, who Lou said she was going to keep, and then all of a sudden Rod is out, and we have the first female adjutant general of the Guam National Guard, as though that were the really necessary aspect of filling that position. Okay, so where was I here on the card? I didn't even really get to the Tory case. There's one interesting thing I've noticed here on the Tory case, and that is that after the case broke, Jay Areola held a press conference, several press conferences, and he was quoted all over the media and said a lot of really interesting things. But I was noticed looking at the decision here, appearing for defendant appellant Anita P. Areola argued. So Anita Areola argued the case before the Supreme Court. It's a good thing she spoke up then, because apparently she hasn't had a chance to speak since her brilliant victory in getting that reversal. But before we leave this is a classic case of people understanding what adherence to some provisions of the Constitution really mean. That if everybody knows that the defendant is guilty, and the evidence before the court, the evidence that the court saw and heard, shows that the defendant was guilty, but there's a constitutional flaw in the way the evidence was gathered, then perhaps that defendant is not going to be found guilty. That's a tough one, But it's what we call the rule of law. So let's see. I've got Kellis on. I've got today's. I guess you opened up the LG line, huh? Next thing, the governor's going to be calling. Afternoon, Kellis.
Hey, Judge. Quick question, because I mean, Tory was an officer of the law. Wasn't he fully aware of the body cams? And shouldn't he?
And you don't have to do the Miranda warnings. And so many of these things, Kellis, have kind of.
Because what I thought was when they first pulled up, and nobody knew what went on, they were just like buddies. You know what I'm saying? Hey, what happened? That's at least the impression that I was first given. And then he said, I shot him. I mean, without, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's where it's kind of hard to say, if you're going up to someone, you're saying, I'm about to give you the Miranda warning, but before I can do it, he says, I did it, you know, as an utterance, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, this is my analysis. This is mine, and it was Piolo that said on the 911 call, he shot me. What Tory said was, people are going to think that I killed him. But,
see, I didn't, like I said, I didn't hear it.
Yeah, but this is my analysis of what happened. The police were called, 4 squad cars responded. There were cops all over the place. They came to Tory's house. Tory is there. Tory's father is there. They're all cops. They all know each other very, very well, and probably it doesn't really occur to them that they are at a crime scene. They see themselves as a place where a cop got killed, and they wonder what happened, and they aren't thinking deep enough to know, hey, this is a crime scene. The fact that we know these guys doesn't change it. So then when Tory went over and sat on the tailgate of the pickup truck and started talking to the officer that questioned him, I suspected the officer that was questioning him just thought, I'm only talking to another cop. I just wondered what happened here. And it just didn't. He was so far out of context that it never occurred to him, I better give this guy the Miranda warning, because as I've explained, the key with the Miranda warning now is whether or not the defendant was in custody. So from an abundance of caution, a cop would do the Miranda thing even if the defendant's not in custody, just to make sure that he's got it covered. But I suspect that they were also carried away by the emotion of the moment that never occurred to them.
Because once you hear an officer is shot, you know, like that's, you know, the officers from down in Maritza are going to drive all the way to Gigo.
Yeah.
With their lights on, because you know that's what. You know, so yeah, I can understand. So okay, and so from now on, I guess they should, as they're walking in, start spouting the Miranda warning before they even come up to the suspect.
Right.
You know, like I said, since I have like almost no awareness of the case, and I said that like the guy's an officer, and you know he's talking to other officers, you know, and you know they might have just. You know, what happened? You know what I'm saying? Not under, like I said, not questioning, did you shoot him? Just what happened?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Okay, I just was trying to get that question out there.
Okay, thanks.
You had enough Leon Guerreros today, I think.
I never heard of Leon Guerrero I didn't like, Ellis. Thank you.
Okay, peace. Bye.
Okay, so the Leon Guerrero line is open. I suspect the next one will be from Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. Sometimes my expectations haven't borne fruit in the past. This may be one of those times. Okay, so I'm going to put the Tory case aside with the understanding that we can always come back to it if people have burning questions that they want to ask about it. We're going in, coming out of the home stretch is as you were, the 7th inning stretch is coming up here.
Get a half gallon of Minute Maid orange juice for only $1.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a half gallon of Dairy Gold milk for only $1.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a $7 meal for only $1.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
How much time do you have on your hands when you're not occupied with work, school, regular responsibilities, or planned recreation? 4 hours a week? Maybe 10? 20? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll add up those hours and talk about the beauty of side hustles.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
And now time for Mezcla's featured special for July. Seafood Lau Lau, a medley of salmon, shrimp, scallops, and fresh spinach, wrapped in tea leaves, steamed to order, topped with soy butter sauce and your choice of starch. Visit Mezcla in Agaya and now in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
Okay, so here we are. I'm going to just check some of the Facebook posts that may have come up in light of the conversation we just had about the Tory case. Somebody says the body cam in question was the private property of the cop who talked to Tory. The GPD, as of now, does not issue or require that their officers wear them. Well, it'd be nice if they did. A nice tool. And see, I thought I had another one on this point here, too. Okay, I can't find it. So I'm going on to the next item on the card, and this is called Chamorro Dance versus the Hula. Or it could be Chamorro Dance versus the Cha-Cha. And this is a story that ran on PNC last night. The Department of Chamorro Affairs is now phasing in the adoption of a Chamorro-only policy for the Chamorro Village. Well, I'm glad they warned me because, let's see, tonight is the night, right? Wednesday night? Yeah, I was going to go down there tonight, but lo Tisenyan, I said tomorrow, Joe. Yeah. So it's Chamorro only at Chamorro Village. I don't know if they'll check ID cards or... I don't have a brown card, you know, real Joe Cruz. Yeah. So this is what the story says. In an interview with Patty Arroyo, Anne-Marie Arceo, president of the Department of Chamorro Affairs, said they are phasing out the holding of Polynesian dance and other non-Chamorro dances at the Chamorro Village. Well, if they're not going to do Polynesian dances or other dances, then they're not going to be doing any dancing at all. Unless they do those dances that Frank Ramon invented about 30 years ago, which he said were the product of his evaluation of Fiji, Samoa, Tahiti, Hawaii, etc., and kind of putting together something that he wanted to represent as Chamorro dance. But they, being the Chamorro Village, Department of Chamorro Affairs, are phasing out the holding of Polynesian dance and other non-Chamorro dances at the Chamorro Village. This has raised an outcry from a number of residents, especially the island's Manamco. who regularly frequent Chamorro Village to dance non-Chamorro dances like the electric slide and the cha-cha. You mean to tell me that the cha-cha is not a Chamorro dance? Next thing you're going to tell me is that Gus and Dahl are not Chamorro musicians. They're not? Wow. So this is what happens when I look at my vocabulary list. Remember chamocracy, Quisling, C cubed. When we get so carried away with colonialism, Chamorro, and culture, we wind up with stuff like this. Get this whole idea of, well, it's Chamorro Village, so we got to stick with Chamorro culture. And, you know, we've got to preserve the Chamorro culture. So if we're going to preserve Chamorro culture, you know what we're going to have to do, Real Joe Cruz? We're going to have some real strict laws and put them in place and hire a lot of cops to make sure that whatever it is that we're doing now, this minute, we never change. Because the Chamorro culture is right now, and it's right here.
It's happening.
It's happening right now. We're living it.
Amazing.
But believe it or not, you and I are part of the Chamorro culture, Real Joe Cruz.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not something, well, you know, we have to look back 100 years ago and see how people did things then, and then we got to do it now. That's preserving the Chamorro culture. It's preserving something. But I took the time to go to a quick definition of culture. And you really can't do it in a one-sentence definition, and you could write a whole book about how the word culture is defined and perhaps not cover all the bases. But here's quick and dirty. Culture, the customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group. Also, the characteristic features of everyday existence shared by people in a place or time. Okay, so what is it that we're trying to do at Chamorro Village by saying it has to only be Chamorro, only Chamorro music? So what is Chamorro music? 50 plus years ago, Chamorro music would have been Johnny Sablon singing Agate Town. And you know what language Johnny Sablon sang Agate Town in, Real Joe Cruz?
English?
Yeah, it wasn't in English. So that meant it couldn't have been Chamorro music, could it? That's a hard one, right? Yeah. That's a tough one. Who is this Johnny Sablon anyhow, right?
I don't know, but I know who Gus Zandall is.
See, Gus and Dahl, eh? Yeah. Ti Chamorro I Dandanya, eh? So as far as I know, from what I've read and the research I've done, there was no pre-contact song or dance on Guam. There was no pre-contact music. The Spaniards, when the Spaniards got here, of course, they brought their music. The most prevalent form of which old-timers could do 50 years ago was called the batsu. You heard that word, Real Joe Cruz?
Yeah, that's like an instrument, right?
No, the batsu was a dance.
Oh, okay.
It was the Hispanized version of the English word waltz.
I see.
Yeah. And then there was this old musical instrument called the Bilinbao Tudzan, which looked like a half coconut shell attached to a broomstick with a long piece of string going from the coconut shell to the end of the broomstick. And this was said to have been a Chamorro musical instrument.
Wow.
And I don't know, I forgot to look that up. I'll look it up before I come in tomorrow. But this whole idea of, well, you know, it's got to be Chamorro music if it's a Chamorro village. if you go back to this idea here of culture, customary beliefs, social forms, material traits, etc., the way a group of people who are in a culture deal with things that come from the outside is an important part of that group's culture. So, you know, for instance, when I was a young kid growing up in Wisconsin, polka music was very popular. Polka comes from Germany or Poland or something like that. Yeah, I got a phone call here. It's our Carl. Probably going to come. Our Carl will probably give us a lesson on what is Chamorro music, right, Carl?
I don't know if I'm really enough of an authority to do that. But I did see that PNC post, and I read a lot of the comments, and that thing exploded. I mean, that if you go on to PNC and you look at all the comments, it is long. And there are a lot of Chamorros on that thread who are really upset about it. These are Chamorros that are upset about it. I think there's a small percentage, maybe like 5 or 10% or whatever, that are for it, but the vast majority are really irritated. Yeah, you know, culture evolves over time. You know, we're confronted with options from, you know, outside sources, those oppressive outsiders, like the Spanish and like the Japanese and like the Americans, and we look at our options. We see, you know, things that can improve our lives, and we say, I think I'll adopt that. I think I'll make that a part of my culture. And we improve our lives.
And you know, Carl, that the idea that you just has expressed is very, very American. It's as American as spaghetti and tacos. Yeah,
well, you know, the Chamorros over many decades, they use the same thing as every culture does. You know, like, are we really going to get rid of red rice, latija? You know, for example, you know, in the Old West, we're used to thinking of the Indians, American Indians, with a horse. Westerners brought the horse to North America. They had never seen a horse until these Western people brought horses to America, and the Indians saw that and discussed among themselves, hey, that's pretty cool. I think we'll adopt that and we'll improve our lives. What are they supposed to do? You know, say that horses are not indigenous, so, you know, that we want to keep authentic. They saw that the horse would vastly improve their day-to-day life, and it did.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make about the word culture. You know, culture doesn't mean what people used to do 100 years ago. It doesn't mean exotic hats and fancy dances, etc. And the epicenter of, if you really want to study Chamorro culture, this is the place to do it, right here, because it's going on right now. But when I read this story here in PNC News, I was wondering, is this some sort of an attempt at a creation of a Guam apartheid? You know, are we borrowing something from South Africa here? This is the Chamorro village, and only Chamorro food, Chamorro handicrafts, Chamorro dances, even though there isn't such a thing, will be tolerated here. And there's another key word here, ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is the attitude that one's own group, ethnicity, or nationality is superior to others. Ethnocentrism. So is this whole thing about we've got to purify the Chamorro village. Only Chamorro music there, yeah. No more cha-cha-cha at the Chamorro village. This electric slide stuff, that's got to go. We don't care if anybody likes it or not. We don't care if we go broke or not. But by gosh, we're going to be pure. Right, Carl?
Yeah. You know, we want to, how do you say, capture history and find out how people lived 50, 100, 200 years ago. But, you know, it's like, are we wanting to go back to that? you know, we're an evolving culture. The Chamorro culture is changing. It's vibrant. It's alive. It's growing. It's adapting. It's taking things from here and there. It's taking certain foods and doing Chamorro fusion, adding on, you know, the Chamorro spin to it. That's a living culture. And what they're describing is trying to take us back to the past and not moving forward. It's, I don't know, yeah, but a lot of the people on that thread, I'm telling you, that Chamorros with Chamorro names, they were not happy with that. I mean, kicking out Jamaican Grill, I don't know. That doesn't seem like that was well thought out.
Here's another one, Carl. You know, one of the key essentials of a culture is a language. And I don't know if I've ever sprung this one on you before, but do you know how to say refrigerator in Chamorro?
No, I've never been.
Yeah, ko tongo no hafta mana masangan ni palabra in refrigerator gifino Chamorro. Unga nai icebox. Because, you know, when the Americans first introduced the concept of refrigeration here, it was with ice boxes. So if you adopt something from a foreign language, ordinarily you adopt the word for that item from a foreign language. Thus, when you go down to buy a pizza, you don't walk in and say, "I'd like one of those Italian pies." Right, Carl?
Yeah, exactly. And to me, you know, this is actually a spin-off of what we're seeing in the mainland, you know, with identity politics coming off of the university campuses, especially from the humanities departments and the social sciences, you know, what they call the soft sciences.
Yeah.
They don't have to have, how do you say, you know, exact numbers and exact proof that something works. As long as your peers like what ideas you come up with, the ideas tend to grow. So these identity politics ideas have flowed from those campuses where they've caused tremendous division among the various races, you know, with this tribalism. And now it's here, and we're seeing it spread and grow. But I was very heartened to see the reaction by many of my fellow Chamorros against this idea, because that is not who we are as a people. We are very open. We want to learn new things. We want to grow. We want to evolve. We want to adapt and make our culture better by adopting new ideas and new things. We don't want to go back to the past. We don't want to be frozen in the past. Anyway, I appreciate the discussion.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Thanks for calling. I've got Jesse and Greg on the line, and let's see, I'm just about up there to the home stretch. So I'm going to put you on, Jesse. You're going to run into the home stretch. So if you can make it relatively quick, okay. Otherwise, I'll carry you over. But I do want to give Greg a chance to talk, too. So go ahead, Jesse.
I was just going to ask, you know, or suggest that would you be able to get Anne-Marie Arceo to talk about what you guys are talking about? Because, I mean, it just seems like you're making fun of this whole issue. So
I am making fun of it, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you would do something like that when you're yourself, you're speaking Chamorro, and, you know, it just doesn't seem, you know, I don't know. It just seems like you have some problem with Chamorro people, or you just don't think they exist, or, you know, do you actually feel that way, or?
No, I don't feel that way, Jesse.
Well, it sure seems that, because, I mean, you're spreading a lot of disinformation, you know, and that's not right.
What disinformation?
You call Anne-Marie and ask her about why, you know, that article is just sensationalizing the whole thing.
No, wait a minute, Jesse. Jesse, wait a minute. You said I'm putting out false information. What false information am I putting out?
The Chacha. Did she say that they're going to get rid of the Chacha? I don't remember her saying that. I don't remember her saying that at all. I mean, there's literally...
This has raised an outcry from a number of residents, especially the island's Manamku, who regularly frequent the Chamorro village to dance non-Chamorro dances like the electric slide and the cha-cha.
Yeah,
so if there's false information, it's not me, it's PNC.
Okay, well, who are them? They don't even quote somebody they're just saying Manamku. I mean... that could this doesn't make any sense. I mean,
Well, it makes all kinds of sense to me, Jesse. It doesn't make any sense to you because it doesn't fit your narrative. So you would.
Well, it doesn't fit your narrative either. I mean, you're putting out there, so you can just do your whole, say, oh, this is all about identity, politics, and all that other, hoopla stuff. But anyways, I would like to see Anne-Marie Arceo get on your show. And
well, then tell Anne-Marie Arceo to call 888-8255.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I just thought I'd put those in, and, I just felt that it was just spreading, it was misleading a bit. When you jump on the show and you hear talking about softening the
Yeah, when I get on the show and start talking about something that's been on TV the night before, I don't think it is appropriate to tell me that I'm misrepresenting something. I'm telling you what was on TV. Gotta go, Jesse. Thanks for calling. Okay, so I've got Greg, and I got another caller coming in on line one, Real Joe Cruz.
Building a business is tough work. Big or small, Nanbo Insurance has your business covered. Nanbo takes the guesswork out of coverage to protect your investments. Over the years, Nanbo has worked with businesses of all sizes, from large hotels to small businesses. Nanbo Insurance will be your best asset. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings, up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
Business travel just got easier. Take your data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 Data-to-Go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is Data-to-Go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
Talk Tells with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Yeah, so just one more comment here on the last call that I had. I've mentioned a few days ago that there are sacred cows, and for some people, one of the sacred cows is the 3 C's, Chamorro. So you could use the word Chamorro, but if your use of the word Chamorro would cause someone to think that you are not in favor of anything dealing with Chamorro, then you have broken the taboo. And that's what I did a few minutes ago when I read the story from PNC and commented on the content of that story. You could only say, if it's Chamorro Village, you could only say nice things about it unless you call Anne-Marie Arceo first. Anyhow, Marquez, I've got Greg on the line, and if there's time when I finish with him, I'll get to you. If not, you can be first online tomorrow. Good afternoon, Greg.
Hey, good evening. Anyways, your comment about the refrigerator.
Yeah.
For me, as I was growing up, refrigerator back then was never introduced until the later years. But with the Chamorro language, what we do is we identify the object, which is an ice box or refrigerator shaped like a box. So back then, we will call it Kahun Maningning or Kahunais.
Sure.
But
Understood.
the Chamorro language now, as we speak, there are things that were never introduced back then during the real Chamorro culture time.
Oh, wait a minute. The real Chamorro culture time?
What I mean, let me correct myself.
Okay.
Our ancestors lived by the land and the sea. There was no such thing as an ice box or whatever we have now due to technology. So the Chamorros intend to identify the object or whatever it may be and use the Chamorro words to identify what it is. So, for example, like I said, with the refrigerator, we all know it's a box. that makes things go. So we usually say kahun maningning or kahun kunais.
Yeah, and the word kahun came from?
The word originated, kahun is a box.
Yeah, but where did the word kahun come from?
Kahun came from during the, I guess, the occupational of the Spanish when they came in.
That's right. Yeah. So cultures or languages have ways of identifying new things that move into their midst. For English, when something new moves into an English-speaking country, we usually borrow some Latin or Greek words to describe it, like television. We took a Greek word and a Latin word and combined them. The Germans would be more likely to use something called circumlocution. So if you translated the German word for television into English, it comes out something more like this: long-distance picture transmission.
Yeah,
but
you got that right.
But that's the way languages work, and that's part of any culture, how it deals with something that comes from the outside, how it names it, how it deals with it, etc. But the Chamorro culture, when people live by the land and by the sea, is no more the Chamorro culture than the one we have right now, because this is it.
And to be honest with you, sir, from my upbringing, even as far back as my grandparents, the language that we spoke, yet we intend to say, which is Chamorro because we're identified as Chamorros, but the language is total mix of different origins. And what I mean by that is knowing that the Spaniards came and they thought they discovered Guam. They brought along Filipinos, they brought along Chinese, then we got occupied by the Japanese. So, you know, as the years goes by, as time changes, things change and things get added on. I mean, I used to laugh when Catherine Ogden used to have that conversation Chamorro when she was still around. And lo and behold, even my grandparents were freaking out because they've never heard of those words broken into, you know, different categories. But it identified something. That's all I wanted to say, Bob.
Okay, Greg. Thanks a lot for calling.
You have a good evening and happy liberations to all.
Good luck, guy. Okay, then I've got Marcus here. Marcus, I think you're going to wrap up the show.
Klitzkie.
See, just a simple sign-on will be good enough.
But we're all, you know, like you said, the other caller before Jesse and stuff, they were right on the point. You know, we're humans, and we evolve dynamically. We're not static. And for thousands of years, people have been evolving. And, yeah, you know, just right now, it's...
Okay, I'm afraid we've come to the end of the rainbow here, Marcus. So you can be first tomorrow if you want to give us a buzz tomorrow. So that's it for another exciting, educational, informative adventure of Tall Tales with yours truly and the legendary Real Joe Cruz. We'll see you tomorrow.